Okay folks, thanks very much for joining us. Today I'm going to be making a short video displaying 3 different types of tying off a fly. So using the whip finish tool, using the half hitch tool if needs be, or your hands, also super glue. So 3 different methods, and I'm also going to test out the durability to see if you really do need to use a whip finish or can you just use super glue or a half hitch. Okay, so I'm going to start off by creating 3 little heads in 3 different colours. Okay, so hopefully you can see this okay, the white over the black here. Okay, and for this first head, we'll probably use the whip finish tool. So if you haven't used a whip finish tool before, you basically, the 2 sections of the whip finish tool, if you can put those on the thread and create a triangle, and the triangle's on your side of the hook. And then what you're doing is you're just twisting the whip finish tool and just keep that up until you've got 5 or 6 wraps. Okay. And then I always let go of the top one first. Some people let go of the bottom one and slowly slide that up. And that should be very secure. And that's probably the most used technique to finish off a fly. As I said, there's other methods as well. So I'm going to change thread here just so it's easier to see. And these, the threads I'm using, they're all the same type of thread. So they're 8/0 uni thread. So whenever we're testing durability, it's a fair competition. Oh, 2 seconds, get there. Okay, so we'll just tie on another wee false head. And we'll use this method as a super glue method. So basically it's putting a little bit of super glue on your thread. I'm just doing a few wraps. Okay, and then you just cut it off. And then you use like a needle or so just to tie it up. Okay, that's your super glue method, and that's actually probably all you would need for the likes of a cone head, because nothing's ever going to be hitting the actual thread anyway. Or it could be a good way to tie off a fly if you're doing it in sections. So say for example you're tying off a tinsel body to varnish it, you could do that. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to be using is a yellow thread to show a half hitch. Okay. So there's a few different ways to half hitch. So some people would just, I'm going to do 5 half hitches because it'll be similar to 5 whip finishes. Okay, so again, you're doing a whip finish, you're creating a triangle and then you're just putting it over. And some people would put their finger on and pull it tight, but it can slip. So the way I was shown when I was learning was put my finger out and actually hold the half hitch and bring it up slowly with a needle, and that means it won't slip. And I would have done that 3 or 4 times, and that's how I would have finished off a fly for years. Okay, but then you can actually also use the needle for the half hitch. So I'll just tighten the thread here. So you would actually create your half hitch on the needle, like that there, and then put it over the eye, and it slips off on. So again, I'll show that again, and it slips off on. So that's your 5 half hitches, which is basically the same as your the amount of whip finishes we've done. Okay, so that's your 3 heads finished. I'm going to do what I always do in the heads. I'm going to use 1 coat of super glue and 2 coats of varnish before we test them out. And I will really test them out. I'll put some forceps or pliers to them. So it doesn't have to be too fancy. Instead of just testing it out, so I'm just going to push on some super glue here. Okay, and then I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry, and I'll come back and I'll give it a first coat of varnish, which today I'm using hard as nails. I would normally use Celear. I think it's a nicer varnish, but this one dries a wee bit quicker, so it's easier to test out for the video. Okay, so now that the super glue is dry, I'm just going to use a light coat of Sally Hansen hard as nails. Okay. Some people would be tempted at this stage to use a thick coat and just leave it at that there, but I'd rather have two thinner coats. And it gives a nicer head. It means that you don't have a big drippy, basically a big heavy blob at the bottom of your head as well. Okay. So what I'm doing is making sure that I've varnished this all, but I've done it evenly, just so it's for a test as well. And that's your first coat of Sally Hansen. So I'm going to come back and usually leave that for about an hour or so before doing my second coat of this varnish. Okay, now we're going to give it the last coat, which is another coat of varnish. So that means that each section is now got one coat of super glue and two coats of hard as nails. I'm going to let this varnish dry for a while now, and then I'll come back the next time and I'll test it out to see how strong it is. A few tools just to put a bit of pressure on. Okay folks, so we now have one coat of super glue and two coats of varnish on each one of these. And just a reminder, the white is the one that has been whip finished, the red is one that has been super glued, and the yellow is the one that has been done with a few half hitches. Okay, so I'm going to try and destruct these. Just going to use a pair of pliers, and I've even got a wee scalpel here as well, and we'll just see how well they hold up each type. Okay, so I'll start off with the white first of all. So this is the one that's been whip finished. I'm just pressing them down really. I'm not even going to twist, just pressing. You can see it's not unraveling there after a few presses. Okay. And after a wee bit of pressure, there you go, it's off. So it's a bit of a shame, a bit of a surprise, but we'll see how the next one fares up. Okay, so a few presses. It's still faring up okay, the one that's been super glued. So essentially this has really had nearly 4 wraps. Well, you see a wee bit of pressure, it's actually starting to unravel. But it's only unraveling as one thread as opposed to the whole thing. Okay, and then we'll see at the half hitch how it fares up. So we'll just grab it and we'll crimp it. And again, it's starting to unravel as well. I'm actually surprised here with the 3 coats. But all of them had about the same amount of pressure. The one that actually fared up the worst was the one with the half hitch. So I don't know what you make of that, folks. A bit of a surprising result, but I guess if your fly's gonna be damaged while they're hitting rocks or fish biting it and hitting it around the head, although it's unlikely, it's probably going to unravel no matter what way you do it. So whether you have the half hitch, the whip finish, or even the super glue, all those 3 methods, they all under a bit of pressure unravel there. So there you go. I don't know if it's worthwhile getting a perfect whip finish tool whenever you can just finish off with a wee bit of super glue, and each of them have their own time anyway, have their own point in terms of fly time. Like I would use a half hitch to finish off a head before then I came in and used a floss head, for example, because it doesn't have to be as neat. The glue's handy, as I said earlier, if you're going to be doing the body and parts. I always, just out of habit, I always whip finish the head. But yeah, there you go folks, make of that what you want. Until next time, all the best.